I'm Wilf Nichols, host of Homegrown, a show about gardening specifically for Newfoundland and Labrador. On this week's show, we're going to the west coast of the island to the community of Kippens. There we'll visit with Kevin Alexander at his gardening centre. Kevin supplies many gardeners in the area with a wide variety of flowers, trees and shrubs, and just recently he's developed a sod-producing farm, hoping to give his customers even more of a choice. Rosemarie Alexander, his sister-in-law, is not only Kevin's best customer, but a great advertisement for the product he sells. On our busy schedule, we'll visit a Newfoundland bog, which is full of surprises for anybody who's interested in the unusual. I'll spend some time talking about a unique Newfoundland phenomenon, that is the roadside garden. There are dozens of them as you drive up the Northern Peninsula Highway. Peggy Dixon will drop by to tell us about the pros and cons of having beetles in your garden, and Debbie and Tim will return to talk about another type of insect concern, plus deal with a problem Tim's having with his onions. We'll take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll be in the beautiful community of Kippens, so stay tuned. It's a beautiful day in Kippens, Newfoundland. I'm here with Kevin Alexander of North Atlantic Nurseries, and this is beautiful. How long you been in business?
This is our 13th year.
13th year?
Yeah.
Wow. And so your customers come from all over this area?
Yeah, we've even had some from Corner Brook, and I don't know how far away, but you know, they come as true gardeners. They come from everywhere, just looking for different things.
Looking for different things. Mm-hmm. So you grow annuals, you buy in perennials and shrubs?
Bring in perennials and trees and shrubs, usually bare root, because I do make my own soil mix, so we do save a little bit of money that way, and it's starting to pay off. It's been about 6 to 8 years now since I've been making my own soil.
Right. And you've just got into sod production?
Yes, I have. It's only about 3 acres, but we've doubled in size since last year. So.
And so you seed it in the springtime?
Yes, or fall, or this time, August, middle of August sometime, and usually it takes about 8 to 10 weeks for that's depending on weather.
Well, that's great. I suppose in an area like this with smaller communities, you have to do a little bit of everything.
Yes, you do have to diversify. If you just did the one thing, annuals or perennials, you'd probably, I don't know if you'd starve to death, but anyway.
Well, you've got some great plants here. I was looking at a star tern in Newfoundland, of course, is that golden elder. Mm-hmm. Look at this one. So that's always a good seller for you.
Beautiful, really nice and really showy.
And look how wonderfully it contrasts with this. I suppose this is Diablo, the 9-bark.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that's great. Beautiful lilies here and roses. Are you getting a lot of call for roses?
Yes, there's more and more people getting into roses. The hardy roses.
Right. So David Austin roses and the Explorer roses out of Manitoba and places like that?
Yes.
Yeah? Mm-hmm. Oh, it's great. It's great. And the roses look really good here. I suppose you're a little warmer here in the summertime than St. John's.
Yes, we are. And I guess our season might be a little
longer?
Longer, maybe.
And that's one of my favorites. This is a prairie plant, coneflower. It's that's also medicinal. People have been using that medicinally.
Echinacea. Yeah.
Well, one of your customers, I think, lives pretty close to you, doesn't he?
Yes, she do. And she's my sister-in-law and probably one of my best customers.
Yeah, well, she better be a good customer of yours.
She gets all her better plants at our nursery.
Great. Well, I think we should go and see her garden.
Sure.
Okay, let's go. Wow, Rosemary, this is a beautiful little bit of garden.
Thank you, Wolf.
It's in the shade because the sun is over there, and so this must be in the shade near enough all day long.
Oh yes, yeah, it's mostly all shade here. Yeah.
And you've got almost a pure white garden with these Annabelle hydrangeas.
Oh yeah, they give me beautiful color. Got to have white in the garden.
And what I like about it is you've got these that are in flower now. Mm-hmm. And over here you have goat's beard, which is again a beautiful white flowering perennial.
Yeah.
And they look so exotic, but tell me about what you do in the wintertime.
In the wintertime for the Annabelle hydrangeas, well, I'm sort of a fall gardener myself. I prefer to have everything kind of prepared in the fall, so I just cut off all the flower heads.
Right.
And normally I leave a lot of the stalks as much as I can.
Yes.
But some of these are a little lower than the others because I've sort of, well, this is about a year now we've had to redo our house, so I sort of had them all kind of leaning down and walked on and that, but they've revived. So in the fall I cut most of them down and clean up all the flower heads and all the leaves and that.
Well, it shows you what a remarkable plant this is for sort of coming on back when you when it has been abused. So this was really
definitely.
sort of flattened by everything.
Oh yes, yeah.
But it looks so sort of lush and everything, and you think, wow, are these really hardy? But these are tough.
Oh, they are. The hydrangeas are the answer for me right here.
That's great.
Definitely.
And then you've echoed these with things like hostas and this lamium here.
Right.
And you've got white right the way through the astilbe over here. So a really nice white garden in the shade.
Yes, yeah.
Well done.
I love white. It brightens up the shade, all right.
And then we have a change of colour over here, so let's wander over here.
Okay.
Again, a simple bed, but I really think this is effective.
Good. I like well, it was done for the colour. I needed lots of colour here.
That's right. So you've got the red rock, you've got the pink hydrangea, you've got a bleeding heart over there, and and a little birch tree.
Yes, and the rock in the background gives me another contrasting colour.
Well, congratulations! It's just a really nice garden, Rosemary. I would do something about those large critters there
because snails?
I think they're getting out of control.
Yes, I will.
Thanks very much for showing.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I'm out here on a bog near Stephenville, and these bogs are all over Newfoundland and Labrador. They're very specific habitats, and they have a whole bunch of plants all to themselves. There are some beautiful plants here. Right over here we've got these beautiful white water lilies. The Latin name is Nymphaea odorata because they do have a wonderful smell to them. I'm standing rather gingerly on a whole bunch of sphagnum peat. Sphagnum is the moss which makes up a peat bog, and it acts like a sponge. It's a wonderful moss, and if I squeeze it, there's all the water coming out. Whenever we buy peat moss at our garden centre and we use it in our potting soils, it is in fact sphagnum. It's the bottom of sphagnum where it all goes brown and it's crumpled up and made into peat moss for our potting soils. This is a very specific type of habitat. It has certain conditions, and the plants that grow in these conditions need the conditions, because if you try and move these plants into your own garden, I'm sorry, they probably won't make it. We have about 800 native species within the flora of Newfoundland and Labrador. There are many of these species that will do well in our gardens, but there are certain species that I would leave right here in a bog. I'm surrounded by marsh berries. I'm surrounded by little insectivorous or insect-eating plants like the Drosera or the sundew. And another plant that is our emblem is the pitcher plant. Let's go and have a look at the pitcher plant, probably in a place where I'm not going to fall up to my knees in water. So there's one over there. We'll just go see that one. Now this plant here is an insectivorous plant called a sundew. And you can see the wonderful glistening sugary droplets at the ends of each leaf. It's like special glandular hairs that have these sticky sugary substance secreted from it. Now flies, little insects, are very interested in getting hold of that sugar, and of course then they get stuck to the leaf and then they slowly die. Well, why should a plant do that in the middle of a bog? Well, in a bog we don't have a great deal of nutrition. We certainly don't have a great deal of nitrogen. And so the breakdown of the proteins from this fly will actually release nitrogen into the soil, which the plant will take up. And that's the same with our emblem. This is the pitcher plant. And here's a beautiful pitcher plant. This is the spent flower, and down here are the leaves, the classic pitcher plant leaves. Again, a plant that grows in boggy areas, and it grows in areas that do not have a great deal of nitrogen. If you take this to a garden and give it good soil and a whole bunch of fertilizer, it's almost certainly going to die because it's adapted to these conditions. Now if we look at this plant, if we take off a tiny little leaf, we can see how it works. It's a tubular leaf with a whole bunch of hairs sticking down, and flies fall into the water. They try and crawl up the side, and then it's like crawling up a ski slope. They keep falling back into the water, and then they drown, they decompose, and their proteins release nitrogen. So it's a plant that grows in poor nitrogen conditions. We've got leatherleaf here, we've got mirica, we've got bog rosemary, we've got all sorts of plants. It's just an amazing garden that if this was my garden, I would not even do anything to this garden. I would just enjoy it as it is. So we've got pitcher plants, leave them where they are. We've got sundews, leave them where they are. There's some wonderful plants out in nature that are nature's garden, that is a homegrown garden that I think you should leave alone. But there's plenty of native plants that you can put in a garden, and we'll be sure to tell you about those in other episodes. Remember that movie, If You Build It, They Will Come? Well, if there's soil, they will garden. And I'm right on the side of the main highway up the Northern Peninsula, and in building the highway, of course, a lot of grubbing had to be done, a lot of peat had to be pushed off to the side. The peat landed right here, and people are gardening because we've got twice as much peat that there'll be in the first place. People have been gardening along the side of the road up on the Northern Peninsula, Roddington, Conch, all over the place for many, many years, and they've been growing some great vegetables, mostly vegetables. Here we've got a whole bunch of potatoes, we've got onions, I think there was some broccoli harvested here, and all we have to do is look at the soil and see, yeah, this is some nice gardening going on here. Look at that soil, that's gorgeous. Smells good. And it's been supplemented by another little bit of free resource that's only a few hundred yards from here, and that's seaweed off the beach. There's some seaweed, you just get it off the beach, dig it into the soil, it's a fertilizer, it's a mulch, it's a wonderful stuff, full of nitrogen, full of potassium, a little bit of phosphorus, and you can see we've got some great production. So, it might not be the most picturesque and it might not be the quietest place in the world to garden, but we're getting a lot of fruit from this place. I suppose the only thing we really have to watch out for is moose, because the Northern Peninsula's got loads of moose, hence we have to build a bit of a fence to keep the moose out. Other than that, it's amazing how people respect other people's property. There's not much stealing from any of these gardens, and it's amazing how far they are from people's homes, because if you find a bit of soil, get gardening. We'll be right back. You have the questions, we have the answers. We'll turn now to Peggy Dixon, who's going to give us some answers about a common Newfoundland problem, and that's beetles.
I've got beetles in my garden. Are they good or bad?
Well, that's a good question too. Most of the beetles in your garden are beneficial, but there are some exceptions to that. And a lot of gardeners may be familiar with one called the black vine weevil, which is a big problem in some gardens. They love rhododendrons, azaleas, and a bunch of different flowers. They eat strawberries and different vegetable crops as well. And in something like a rhododendron, the adult weevils, the beetles, black vine weevils, they actually have a very characteristic notching that they do, so you can tell if the beetles are in your garden when you see that notching. And that the weevil larvae are actually down on the roots of the rhododendron or whatever plant, and they're causing more damage, but this is sort of just a warning sign. So there's a few beetles that are definitely pests. Most of them, though, are beneficial. And one group of beneficial insects or beneficial beetles that I'd really like for you to be aware of are ground beetles. And these are probably not that noticeable because most of them are nocturnal. They're active during the night, and you probably don't see them. They live in the soil. And you may see them a lot in your garden when you're digging and you're just disturbing their resting during the day. That's probably when you see them the most. Ground beetles, there's about 200 different kinds in Newfoundland and Labrador. They come in all different shapes and sizes and colors. A lot of them are fairly large, up to about an inch long. A lot of them are black and brown, but some are sort of iridescent green and some are very tiny. And the great thing about them is they're very voracious predators. As adult beetles, all of them are really good predators in your garden, and even the larvae, which you're probably even less familiar with because they're not very obvious. Larvae are down in the soil too, and they're great predators as well. So ground beetles, they come in all shapes and sizes. It's really worth your while as a gardener to get to know them a little better. I'd recommend looking up some books, getting on the internet, and just getting to know them, so you'll know not to destroy them, not to think they're pests.
We'll turn now to Tim and Debbie, and Tim's got a few insect problems himself. Plus he's got some onion troubles, so we'll go over and see how he's doing in the vegetable patch.
Hi, and welcome back to the vegetable patch. We're here with Tim Murray, and we're just checking in to see how the rest of your crops are doing. How are things going?
Everything's going pretty good. I guess we talked about it in the earlier shows about insect damage and slug damage as well. And it still proves to be a problem today. Okay. With the broader leaf plants, such as the Swiss chard, I was wondering about how we could stop insects from attacking it.
Okay, well, I've brought along actually some different products, so just to show you what's available. We actually have a lettuce here that's been really damaged from heat, and there's also a lot of snails right down in the center of them feeding. So once they're in here, well, this lettuce is a lost cause. But earlier on and throughout the season, you can use slug and snail bait. Now, again, as we talked about earlier, you want to make sure that it's out around the perimeter of your garden, not in among your vegetables. There's two different kinds. There's actually a chemical kind that you can use. This is something that you want to be careful that the birds or your pets don't eat. So we usually recommend that you put these pellets underneath a rock or something flat that hides them away. In areas that the slugs and snails were as cool and moist, somewhere where they hide out. They come out and feed in your garden in the nighttime and hide away in cool, moist areas during the day. The one I like to use, this is a natural product, won't harm pets or birds or wildlife. And again, it's a pellet. You can sprinkle it around the perimeter, hide it away. They'll feed on this and then they'll go away and die in their dens. So you don't see dead slugs around either. Okay, this is a nice one. I find it works really well, and you might have to put it down a couple of times throughout the season, and that'll help you get control of that problem. I brought along a nice large magnifying glass because a lot of the insect problems that you get, you really have to look underneath the leaves. You have to look right into the center of the plant, and a magnifying glass helps you see what's there. Some of them are really small, so you want to just have that around with you to help checking for your insects, checking your plants.
Sure.
Okay.
And in terms of the leaf itself, it seems to be the biggest area of attack. Is there something we could spray on it, to the leaf itself or the plant itself?
You want to choose products based on what the problem is. So make sure that you know what your problem is before you go spraying anything. We like to recommend some of the natural products like insecticidal soap, BTK, which is a again, an organic product, based on what you're spraying it for. This is for caterpillars. Insecticidal soap works by coating the insect with the soap so it can't breathe. There are other chemicals like malathion and Sevin and things like that. Again, you want to be really careful about what you use. Whenever you use any of those products, wear gloves. Make sure you don't get the drift, breathe the drift, or get it on your skin, because it can be harmful to you. And most of the products have recommendations on the side that say you can't harvest within 7 or 10 days. Some of them 14 or 20 days. Some of them say don't harvest or don't use it after flowering stage, depending on what you're using it for. So you want to make sure that you really do follow the directions and mix the products exactly as according to the directions so that it works properly. And timing is important, getting it on right when the insect is there, right at the proper time.
Sure.
Okay. So there's some products that you can use. I see your Swiss chard is actually doing really well. So there's good development there. So that crop is doing quite good. And you harvested a little bit for your lettuce salads?
Yeah, we've harvested a little bit up to now.
And your purple cabbage is doing really well?
Yep.
But your onions are not so good.
No, my onions are not showing much life.
No. So what do you think happened?
Well, I guess weeding was probably the biggest problem. I don't really know the whole details of it all.
I guess the weeds were really high when you hauled them out and you hand hauled them.
Yeah.
So that damaged the root a little bit, and the weak growth that had developed trying to reach for the sun, it just couldn't stand on its own and fell over.
Sure.
And so that's pretty well what happened here. It's all fallen down and the crop has collapsed. Onions like it really warm. They like it hot and sunny, and can handle a little bit of drought. But I guess this is just a crop that you'll have to try again next year.
Sure.
Okay. Well, join us in the garden next week and we'll see what else is happening in Tim's garden. Thank you.
Welcome to gardening, Tim. There are lots of problems, but there's lots of rewards too. On next week's show, we're going to be based at Munn Botanical Garden, where we'll have a revealing demonstration on how to make a small alpine trough. They're simple to make and make a great addition to anyone's garden. I plan to take you on a tour of the beautiful rock garden here at Memorial, and the whole concept lends itself well to growing conditions here in Newfoundland and Labrador. Dr. Peggy Dixon will give advice about an insect she feels gets a pretty bad rap. And it's not even an insect, it's a spider. And Debbie has some more advice for Tim as he tries his hand as a first-time vegetable gardener. Before we go, I'd like to say thanks to the people that helped us put this show together. Avis Rent-A-Car and Holiday Inns in Corner Brook helped us with transportation and accommodation. Landscape Newfoundland and Labrador, our non-profit trade association, and the agricultural policy framework, well, without them, there would be no homegrown. So, thanks to you for watching, and we'll see you next week.